Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is time. We're going to be moving on to Kings Row for the first match this evening of the North American region. It will be Splice versus Selfless, locked in a group with Envy. Both of these guys considered underdogs against Envious, but that really doesn't matter for now. They're locked in a very strong battle between each other right now. It's not entirely clear who's going to come out on top, and we're expecting a very tense three-game series.
Absolutely, Jorasar, and I think there is a big prize just to get to Atlanta for either of these teams. If they're able to get there in this group with Envious, that's going to show a lot to the community, and they're going to try and make a name for themselves here. As we do get into the action, it is Kings Row. Splice going to be defending first. Very standard lineups, although we do now have a Hanzo on attack here, Jorasar.
Yeah, Dark maybe just wanting to get a Sonic Arrow and the quick scatter off before switching off. And there we go, instantly coming back out as Lucio. So not too much to report there. Selfless now moving around the statue, very calmly staying behind Reinhardt Shield. No crazy flank shenanigans to start things up. And
here, as a Zarya player, going to be trying to get a charge and get that ultimate up before the enemy Zarya player. So we'll see who does get that charge first. Michael3D will get the first kill, and this actually bodes well for Selfless already as they're beginning to eke out a small advantage for themselves. Chili gets close to taken out, but will survive. So this is a nice, calm, collected push. You're exactly right, Jorasar.
Really good that the first pick as well was Shane. Very important because that is no Reinhardt for Splice right now, so they have to give up the point, or at the very least contest away from it. Without that shield, it makes it very difficult. Michael3D, though, is an excellent pickoff, and Splice are fighting back. Clockwork grows ahead and grabs 2 for 2, and that will send Selfless back to spawn. Very clutch there from him.
Oh, absolutely love the positioning there from Clockwork. Very well calculated. Didn't put himself into too much danger, was able to just get the shots and eventually collect that kill. That said, this next fight is where the ultimates are going to start to be thrown out, as we're going to have a couple of Zarya ultimates at bay, and anything can happen. Of course, both Zarya ultimates are instantly thrown out. Both teams very eager to get right into the action.
Indeed, and that's a lot of ultimates effectively cancelling each other out there. We had a Transcendence of Sound Barrier, and we had both Zaryas with ultimates. There is the second Sound Barrier as well on the part of Selfless. Attacking, of course, they need to try and make this count. Excellent Earth Shatter, followed by charge from Shane there, negating Emon entirely, but Selfless managed to get the next 2 kills.
Yeah, they have a one-man advantage here. Selfless still in this fight, still pushing forward. Juvenile's going to get another kill, so they still hold on to this advantage, and that is going to be the first point captured in a pretty decent time. It took about 2 minutes to get this, but that's just fine here for Selfless as they'll move on to the Streets phase. No ultimates, though, for either team, and that's going to be a good old-fashioned brawl the next time they engage.
And that's why, oh, hang on a second, a very nice pick potentially off on Michael3D there. You can see him very, very far up, nowhere close to the payload, because he wants to buy as much space between his team and the payload as possible, so that they effectively have free push all the way up. And Zarya, of course, with her shield, a very good character to do that with.
Yeah, you're going to see Zarya's pushing way ahead of their teams frequently because they want to get that charge. They want to build up the charge as early as they possibly can. And while Michael3D was in danger of being taken out, he actually did get a nice amount of charge. Look, he's got 80. Wonder where the other Zarya sickness is at, but so far that bodes well.
Oh, man. Shrugger with the triple kill coming in off of Reaper, doing a tremendous job with the first huge ultimate of the game there, and Splice, for the second time now, completely pushed Selfless back.
I actually didn't get a chance to see that happen on my screen. Probably was some kind of big flank there coming from Shrugger. Nice stuff for Splice. That said, Selfless still plenty of time, and they will have a couple of ultimates up for this next fight. At least that Zarya ultimate ever impactful into the game. But actually very aggressive now out of Splice. They're going to be coming forward on defense. Nice charge though out of Juvenile. Going to get the first pick for his team as they do continue forward with a small advantage.
And Rob Wiz now with the die himself, not able to get the kills, but a lot of heroes actually going down in health. And it's important to note, by the way, oh, hang on a second, Michael, you're getting taken out by a fantastic Earth Shatter from Shane. He picks up the double by eliminating Dak as well. He's got Rob Wiz around the corner. This is going to be a trickier battle for him to win, but manages to pick off Juvenile. He was down to 47 hit points. Shane at the moment was on a roll.
Yeah, I gotta give MVP of this game so far. I know we're only a couple minutes in, but I gotta give it to Clockwork. He has come up clutch for his team. It hasn't been any huge ultimates. It's just been great positioning and clicking heads. And nice stuff from Clockwork to keep his team in this, even though he was able to do that. Selfless still pushing closer and closer to this next point. It's still plenty of time, though, for Splice to jump on. They are going to try and engage and slow this payload down.
Emon now taking the back lines there as Shrugger again getting another couple of kills off, specifically this time they're on Rob Wiz, the opposite number on Reaper. Emon not quite able to make those kills count. Excellent flashbang, but unable to make the rest convert. Clockwork and Shrugger are both doing so much work on part of Splice. Selfless don't have the DPS to counter that right now.
Yeah, it just feels like at this point in time, Clockwork has been able to do kind of the damage of, well, both the DPS players for the defending team here. Just feel like they are winning out in a lot of these battles so far. Sickness now with a whole lot of charge behind his name, and when Zarya has above 80% charge, she is effectively as good of a DPS dealer as anyone on the field.
It's very nip and tuck right now, to be honest, because Clockwork doing a tremendous job. So is Rob Wiz on Selfless, and they're on opposing team. We have the High Noon to start things off. Emon managing to pick up. Oh, by the way, on both Ninja and Shrugger, I thought he was only going to get the one there, but that ends up being very big, and Selfless should be able to carry some momentum here.
Yeah, that was actually, I gotta say, Shrugger, that was about as telegraphed of a Death Blossom as you could ever have. He was coming over the top, but still, Shayna's Ghost gonna keep his team alive for just a little bit longer, but it's just the last gasp effort. Sickness with full charge, though. He's gonna use an ultimate. Solo getting kills here. Just a Lucio and a Zarya. Here finally comes Reaper into the action, but Sickness, he had the Graviton Surge, he had the charge. It was questionable whether he should have popped the ultimate there, but he did it and saved his team from losing that checkpoint.
Nobody was actually hitting Sickness for the majority of that, so particularly interesting. He more or less got 2 free kills and a lot of damage on a third there, so maybe Selfless not quite having the awareness that they maybe should have, but at the same time Sickness was coming in from an odd angle. Still though, to have one player effectively kill 3 unanswered there is definitely a lifesaver for Splice in that situation.
All right, back to the drawing board for Selfless. They've made their way up to the payload one more time, but Shrugger coming through. He just goes balls deep. He's going straight through that Reinhardt shield. Doesn't have a care in the world. Moving on in and dropping that Death Blossom. Gonna get up a whole bunch of kills for himself.
And that's the second triple that he's managed to land this game. Selfless, like you say, back to the drawing board. And oh no, Michael 3D disconnecting with 30 seconds left to go. There is not going to be a pause. This is really devastating for Selfless right now. They cannot if they push this 5v6 and manage to make it to the next checkpoint at this point as well, that is absolutely going to be epic, but this is looking very difficult.
Yeah, rough times, although Shayna's Ghost is going a little bit too far in. He's going to go out. And even though they're down 5 versus 6 at the moment, this is actually a decent opportunity for Selfless to try at least get this next checkpoint. They're going to do everything they can, but not going to get there in time. And unfortunate for Michael 3D there. And you know, Jorsar, the one thing I will say about this is we just so rarely see drops like this in Overwatch, so it's actually quite a surprise to see this right now.
It's very unfortunate. It could have been a variety of issues, and we're not quite sure. It looks like it. Well, I'm not even going to speculate, but one thing I would say, though, is that Shrugger and Clockwork both did an incredible amount of work in that first half of the map. And while we may have not gotten the final result we would have expected had Michael 3D not dropped, I would say that Splice have been looking very, very strong.
Yeah, and Shrugger, man, several times he was able to just combo with the Lucio speed boost to get right on into the enemy team. And if you're Selfless right now, you got to be thinking, what are we doing wrong to be taken off guard by Shrugger 3 times, at least 3 times in just a couple of minutes here on Kings Row? They were caught fairly off guard, and you know, I'd like to see maybe Emong hold on to his flashbang, wait for that moment, because if you're able to flashbang Reaper, his ultimate's already done. It's done right away. So looking to see if Emong can shut down Shrugger a little bit here as they switch things up.
It's tricky as well, because that would also mean Emong has to be in positions where Shrugger is likely to flank from. Those aren't always positions you want to be standing in, ready for a Deadeye, or you could be open to a flank from somewhere else. So the question is, are you constantly holding off the flank, or are you trying to deal the maximum damage for your team? You can't always do both of those things in one location. And as a result, Selfless are going to have a couple of interesting questions they'll have to ask themselves here.
Is this real life, Jorsar? Are we really going to see Mei on defense on the first point of Kings Row? I don't hate it. Obviously, you could put up that ice wall, and it does block the entire main entrance. You can force people, try to split their army in half as they do come on through the gates.
Well, he's done this before. I mean, he really likes this play. It's definitely not considered quote-unquote best practice. You're waiting for a couple of people to move on through. As soon as he spots one or two bodies move on to the left-hand side, the ice wall will come out straight away. But Splyce have actually taken the top route. That's making Michael 3D's life significantly harder right now. And at the moment, he would definitely have rather been Zarya. Now we have, look, the wall's going up, but all but one of the opposing team were actually this side of the wall. So it hasn't been super effective so far.
Yeah, at least though, Selfless able to get the first 2 kills here, and that should be enough for them to hold on fairly easily here. Emon going to get the first 3 kills for his team, and Michael 3D, this might actually pay off as he's able to get a consolation kill in the end. And we actually saw Mei have her moment to shine over the course of the weekend in the ESL Atlantic Showdown. It was, however, not on any payload maps. It was only really on Hanamura and on Temple of Anubis that we saw Mei really impact the game. But here, pretty ballsy pick by Michael 3D to go with Mei here on defense.
It's certainly interesting because you need to justify not picking another hero. Because it's Michael 3D, I'm going to say not picking his normal Zarya.
Yeah,
so
right.
He needs to make sure he gets that amount of utility out of the wall, that he's able to help his teammates split the opposing team's heroes cleanly enough that it totally justifies the pick. And at the moment, he's just presenting obstacles for Splyce. He might not be doing the straight-up damage, but he's enabling people like Emon to get those picks in where we need to. And RobWiz wins the battle of the Reapers as he picks off Shrugger. We've been seeing it the other way round so far in this series, so a nice little win there for Selfless.
Yeah, Selfless has looked really great on defense so far. Still, plenty of time for Splice to come on through, and look at this. They are close to having 4 ultimates and not too far away from having 5 as well. So they're going to have this up for the next fight, most likely. That said, tons of ultimates up for Selfless as well. There's going to be Earth Shatters on both sides. Michael 3D will be able to freeze at least a couple in this engagement. Gonna get a flurry of kills though. Selfless, they actually used more ultimates than they needed to. That was a clean wipe.
That was a really cool bit of coordination there, by the way, between Michael 3D and Juvenile. We had the wall go up, and basically Splyce could not see that anything that was prepared behind it. The wall got cancelled early, and that's when Reinhardt came in. So a nice little bit of team coordination, and managing to get them a couple of kills as a result.
Yeah, good stuff. Comboing the Earth Shatter and the Mei ultimate. Blizzard, I guess it's called. You don't see it that often. Here comes an aggressive sound barrier. It's going to give a little bit of extra survivability. Slice now moving straight forward. Splice, but Shrugger has been frozen in his tracks. This fight is weird because no one has been taken down even close to dead. Juvenile will be the first to drop. Shrugger will drop as well for Splice. And this is a 5 versus 5. Now 5 versus 4.
Oh, Shane.
Selfless going down. This is looking great for Splice.
Shane coming in with a triple kill, by the way. That fantastic Earth Shatter following up by a huge charge into the wall. Lucio is approximately in next week. He's halfway up Big Ben, but he is eventually going to go down as well. Duck doing some incredible things with the verticality here on first point. I'm pretty sure that was a height that Farah would have been proud of.
Yeah, man, that was pretty funny to see. And we don't have Twitch chat open right now, but I can see the lulls in my head. They're happening right now. I can see it as Lucio's climbing for his life. But Michael 3D, look at this, still sticking with Mei. Of course, he's got the Blizzard to his name. I think he wants to use it. At a certain point, though, you got to start seeing the Zaryas. You got to start seeing some kind of switch up. I'd imagine. I don't feel like Mei has a lot of utility on the Streets phase. As soon as you get the... will they be able to get... Yeah, well, this is a nice kill. But Blizzard's now out of the picture. Wouldn't be surprised to see Michael 3D switch things up soon here.
He's actually been doing quite well with Mei, and that's the second time we've seen him hold out on Blizzard. So there is every chance he actually stays on the hero for now. He's been defending and just delaying Splyce so much. Splyce haven't really adapted to this single tank plus Mei composition that we've seen out of Selfless right now. And I haven't seen them get any sort of critical early pickoffs, whereas with Michael 3D and the walls up, we've seen them get critical early pickoffs 3 or 4 times now already.
Oh, big Earth Shatter now coming out for the defending team. Selfless will hold strong. That's 4 kills in a row. And that is absolute domination. Splice back to the drawing boards, and we said this was probably going to be a close game, and it's looking very much that way, as both teams pretty much on a similar pace. Both made it to the Streets phase around this point. Again, though, all Splice has to do to win here on King's Row is get to the 3rd and final objective. That's it's definitely possible for them still.
The DPS players are a particularly interesting contrast because on defense, Clockwork and Shrugger did so well for Splice, and now we have Robwiz and Emog doing very well in the exact same positions for Selfless. So this isn't a case of one pair of players dominating the other. This is more defense helping offense, and that is a massive flank with an Earthshatter. It gets whipped though, and Shane goes down completely. That was utterly shut down there. And we'll see what Selfless can do on the response. Clockwork from inside actually is being more or less unfiltered right now, but Juvenile getting a double kill will even up the score for Selfless.
Okay, Clockwork though, keeping his team in this for the time being. He will eventually go down though. Selfless looks like they're going to be able to hold. Juvenile gets another. But that was an interesting play. Of course, you saw Splice go for this huge flank coming from the side, coming from kind of an unexpected direction, but Michael 3D is going to get the consolation kill as I'm blabbing about the last play, but they're coming from the side, flanking from the right, but they didn't check their 6. There was a Reaper right behind them, able to just dole out way too much damage before that flank even began. One more time for Splice.
The entire flank as well just wasn't actually that great because Shane spent a lot of energy flanking and then used the Earth Shatter. Didn't really get any kills off the back of that as well. So very unfortunate stuff for him there. Michael 3D, he's looking to put the wall up, but these teams, they're coming around from somewhere entirely different. Michael just about manages to get away with his life, having to use the left click there. And this ultimate basically tries to freeze everybody. No one's actually going down though. The DPS backups weren't there for either teams.
All right, it's going to be Transcendence pop for Selfless, keeping everyone alive in this fight, and we do have a Winston now on attack. Switching things up a little bit, Sickness couldn't really make too much value out of the Zarya up until this point, but once again, Selfless looking very, very strong, and there's only one push left for Splice. You thought that they must have had an advantage after the fact that they stopped the payload in the Streets phase. Kings Row is a map where we're seeing teams complete it time and time and time again, but even yet another kill for Emong is going to mean this last push is going to have to come through at the last possible second here. 10 seconds left, Jorsar.
The stakes cannot be high right now for Splice. We have Deadeye coming out from Emong to start things off here. Behind a Reinhardt shield and Mei, once again, Michael 3D showing us some extremely sexy Mei play. They do manage to get onto the point in time for overtime. And Shrugger coming out, Robwiz with the Death Blossom. Everybody's behind Reinhardt shield. It's okay. Splice still have an opportunity to push through here, but 2 people are down. Shane now, the bedrock of this team on Reinhardt, has gone down as well. Can they use Transcendence to get through this?
All right, Clockwork is going to have to carry his team here. Will he be able to get any kills at all? No, Selfless is dominating. This is quite a surprise here. Not only did we see Mei on defense, but Splice completely shut down on the second phase here on the Streets, a phase that we usually see the attacking team have a huge advantage on. And man, that Mei play actually paid off in the end.
Unsurprising that Shrugger's going to be coming away with play of the game here, and you can really tell that Splice started to struggle at the point where we saw Sickness switch off onto Winston here as, oh man, Shrugger basically getting contributions to a pentakill. But Michael 3D forcing the change onto Winston because they simply couldn't get charge built up on Zarya. They couldn't get people on, they can't actually get people onto the bubble either, because when you're behind the wall, there's no charge to be built up. So they really struggled with Michael 3D on Mei, and I think the utility, especially the wall usage there from him, was superb all game long.
So again, guys, if you are looking for a horse to root for in the race, of course we do have Splice, mainly hailing from TF2. Almost all of these players were fairly well known at one point or another as being high-level TF2 players, including Sickness, who's you're going to be seeing on the Zarya quite a lot. Clockwork was one of the best scouts in the game, mainly playing McCree, a little bit of Tracer here and there. So this is a team hailing mainly from TF2. On the other side, Selfless, a big background in games like Enemy Territory, Call of Duty, so a slightly different flavor of FPS, but in the end, Selfless actually comes out on top, and they're a little bit lower in the rankings, so this is good to see for them.
It was a very tricky situation for Splice to be in there as well, because at the end of the day, they didn't end up dealing with Mei. Unfortunately, the walls were just too good for them, and I think one of the things they could have done differently is maybe have a sort of more consistent plan to flank. Michael 3D was constantly in positions where wait for 1 or 2 players, build the wall, that's it. And Splice was only ever in 2 modes, full-on engage and break down the wall and keep pushing through, or everybody flanks at once. The number of times we saw Splice attack where there were just 1 or 2 people off to the side, we more or less didn't see that in that game, whereas Selfless were giving it a good go. And I'd like to see just a little bit more of that from them moving into the next map, which is going to be Dorado.
Yeah, I actually agree completely. I mean, you could have seen something like a Genji, you could have seen something like a Tracer, but without a composition like that, they don't really have the ability to flank or come from multiple angles at once. And you're right, Mei is great at crowd control. If you're all going to be filtering in through one choke point, that's when Mei is going to excel the most. And we are actually headed to Dorado next, so pretty much the 2 most standard, most common payload maps in the game were selected for 1 and 2, as we are heading on over to Mexico, and Dorado will be the map. I wonder who's going to be attacking first, and if we're going to see any kind of funny business. Will we see another Mei come out from Michael 3D on defense? You know, this is another map that it can be done.
Well, I mean, what I would say is that if he brought it out on Kings Row, he can certainly bring it out on Dorado. It's going to be less useful on the streets phase. I'd say at the beginning and at the end of the map, Mei, hypothetically, would be more useful. He is actually on Mei at the moment, but they are attacking and they will have some time to prepare. And now he is switching back up onto Zarya. Basically, Mei could be useful up until the first archway, and then there's so much open space that the walls actually lose a lot of their utility, maybe until you get into the final room. So I've got no surprises here. Michael 3D is back on his normal zone.
Oh yeah, and Zarya's god tier on attack on this point. As you're filtering in through that choke point of the arches, teams are just going to be spamming away, and that is heaven for Zarya. She's going to be able to get up her charge so damn quick. And interesting positioning, though, for Splice. They're going to start chipping away, try to build a little bit of ultimate, but again, very smartly falling back when the time is right and getting back into a better defensive position here.
So, talking about the way the teams are actually adapting to each other, I feel like Splice did a good job in the end trying to adapt to Mei, especially with the Winston changes, trying to change up their playstyle. My only criticism might be that it came a bit too late because they were under so much time pressure at the end. So they need to identify if and when Selfless choose to pull something like that and just react a little bit faster, and then I think that'll actually give them enough time to mount a really good challenge against what Selfless have to offer.
Okay, here comes Selfless. They're moving up into the market area. Clockwork will drop first blood, though. No Lucio, no speed boost, no passive healing as well. And this is pushing Splice all the way back. Selfless. They have to retreat now. They have to wait for their whole team to get into position. Can't really push in without 1 or without 2, especially. So back to the spawn, and going to be moving forward here once again. Rob Wiz now on to Genji. So this is the first time we've seen a Genji in play, and I like it here on Dorado. So many opportunities to flank as Genji.
We're looking for opportunities to go ahead and unleash the Dragon Blade here. Transcendence and Dragon Blade both available. Rob Wiz sneaking around to the side here on the market. And are we going to see a full flank? No, hang on a second. There goes the Graviton Surge. Here comes Rob Wiz. Dragon Blade unsheathed, but he gets cut down. 3 kills in a row for Splice, and that did not work out for Selfless at all. But they are still in the fight. They're trying to stay relevant. Shrugger getting the double, though, and he absolutely kills off any chance they had of winning that.
Yeah, Ninja Nick playing Lucio here for Splice. Did drop that sound barrier at the perfect time. He did hear the Dragon Blade coming out. He's going to be able to negate that pretty easily. Because if you actually watch that last fight, it was Rob Wiz was even able to reflect the flashbang into the McCree's face. Wasn't able to get the kill, though, because of that sound barrier. So nice stuff out of Ninja Nick.
Very important to get the timing on that right. I mean, we're effectively got 5 seconds, so there will be the end, of course, oh, hang on a second, and we're going to be starting things off with a double high noon from Emong. He's going to get a double, and Juvenile trying to pick up some damage as well. Rob Wiz getting the counterpart kill onto Shrugger, and these two guys, Emong and Rob, we were calling them out on the last map as well. On Kings Row, they were fantastic. On Dorado, once again, they are pulling the stops. The difference is, this time they're on the attacking team.
Okay, so for the first point, it's going to go, but that's a couple of minutes off the clock. This is not necessarily a fast time or a time that you're super happy with either way. And we are going to be moving on to the church's area. And of course, one of the key things about the church is you always want to take the high ground. Defense is going to try to get up there as quickly as possible, and then it's up to offense in most cases to figure out a way to dislodge them. So what will they do? Will we see a switch on over to Winston or anything like that? No big changes so far, but you got to find a way to dislodge this high ground defense.
Splice will have the option, of course, to decide when they're going to be moving down. Shrugger coming down. Oh, I'm not really sure about that because of the shield from Reinhardt. And he basically whips that, and Rob was coming out with the counter ultimate. He gets two and manages to pick off Shrugger as well. Little bit mistimed there from Splice, and very eager to get in there early. Following them into the room behind the shield means that the counter is going to be fantastic from Selfless. And this is dangerous because both teams were very strong on defense on the previous map. But right now, Selfless are showing us a masterclass at pushing on the offense.
Yeah, they're making it happen here, and I like the thought. Of course, they were able to combo that Death Blossom with the speed boost, but it was that Reinhardt shield as well as the Zarya bubbles that kept the attacking team alive. But look at this, striking back now. Even though they weren't really well positioned or weren't super together as a team, Splice has been able to strike back, get a couple kills, and Selfless now needs to find a new way in.
Well,
let's see how they do it.
Here's the thing, right? At the end of the day, they got so much push off of the payload on that. It's basically under the second archway now, that if Selfless can find a way to almost bypass the church and just try and fight under the arch, that actually forces Splice to collapse upon them. That's exactly what's going to be happening now with the Graviton Surge coming down from Cygnus, but Emo again getting a double kill, anticipating that and going very early on for the Deadeye. An absolutely huge Earth Shatter allows Splice though to come back in. It's Shane absolutely clutch with his timing, and Clockwork with Deadeye dispatches as well. Both teams now trading very, very heavily.
And what a wild battle we've seen, both teams drawing so much blood, and it was so hard to call. It looked like it was going one way, then it was going the other. Rob was still on the point with his friendly Zarya. This is absolute mayhem as both teams are spread apart across this courtyard area, but in the end, Splice will get a couple of kills, led by Cygnus there, the Zarya player for the team, mainly built off TF2 fame and TF2 experience here, is able to hold once more. So now we have only a minute and 40 seconds left on the clock. Are we going to see another payload get stuck in the second section of the map?
Selfless moving around the side. They're going to be going up to the first floor and heading straight onto the bridge. The entire team is going this route. Splice did also see them go that way, so there's not going to be any surprise there at all. They're moving now through the church, and both teams having a little bit of a face-off on the first floor. And this actually forces Splice onto the low ground. So Selfless this time, as the attacking team, will be able to choose when to move on down and when to engage. Cygnus now trying to spot and take out a Reinhardt shield very early on, and here comes the collapse. Transcendence now being moved out from Selfless. They move down Clockwork. God, the rest of the team now moving down on top of the payload. Can Splice survive?
And I think if you saw that, Cygnus saw a whole bunch of the enemies grouped on up. He said, I'm just going to take my risk and throw out the Graviton Surge, but they were not in a position to do any damage. But here comes Rob Wiz.
Rob Wiz, quad kill actually coming out now from Reaper. Absolutely disgusting. He basically didn't even use his ultimate there. He just came in over the top, shotguns to the face, and picked them off one at a time.
Yeah, that was absolutely huge. And if it were not for that, Rob Wiz wasn't for that huge play, would be Selfless. Back to the drawing board. Here they go, though, onto the final point. And actually getting decently close to a couple of ultimates. As soon as they have that sound barrier, I think that's going to be the cue for them to move on in, as they do have also the Graviton Surge to their name. On the other side, Pure, only one up with the ultimate. It's going to be Transcendence. Small window here for Splice, or for Selfless, though. If they're able to move on in with this.
Oh no, Rob
here we go.
No, he's got the ultimate. He's waiting for Transcendence to pop back. That is the Graviton Surge, and he gets taken out. He manages to get Ninja Nick, but that was not what he was looking for. He wanted another triple or a quad. And now, this is basically wide open. It's an all-out brawl on top of the payload, with Selfless, though, able to stay in front of it. And crucially, that means the payload keeps moving.
Yeah, here we go. Moving on to the final meters here. Just 10 meters left as the payload moving ever closer. Shane is Ghost, using the Reinhardt shield, getting his team some room, I guess, just getting on in there. And the kills, though, going Shrugger, Shane is Ghost, Clockwork, all getting a kill apiece. Pure getting a kill as well, so Selfless utterly shut down in that last engagement, even though it was Splice that had to find their way through the spawn choke. Selfless fell so damn quick, and I gotta wonder what fell apart for them there. I mean, they used the sound barrier, and that was one of their last lifelines here. As they probably, I mean, they're barely going to have time to build another sound barrier before this last fight.
They need to be able to get the picks that they need off of their support ultimates. This is so important for Selfless now because they have less than 1 minute remaining. They actually pushed quite well to start off with, but unfortunately for them, Splice have just done a good enough job at delaying that suddenly there's a real sense of urgency to Selfless's attack. If they get wiped right now, they will still have one more push, but something has to happen within the next couple of seconds.
Okay, here comes a big potential Death Blossom, going to be comboed with that Zarya shield, and oh, just barely surviving that Reinhardt charge. Emong is going to get the kill, 3 kills in a row, and that surely should be enough for Selfless here, right? You'd think so, but here comes the Zoom Yata coming out of spawn with that ultimate, of course giving him the extra speed to just delay. That's the name of the game now for Splice, as they're going to be filtering in one at a time, but we've seen this time and time again, even with the disadvantage. Splice is not out of this.
Very strange, by the way, that Chili actually used his Transcendence at the same time. I wonder if that ended up being a little bit of a mistake, because he was basically just protecting against the Zenyatta with Transcendence, but that's not going to matter. Selfless in overtime will set a time on Dorado. Now, this is by no means a time to be writing home about. They've used the entirety of map time, plus a little bit over the top, but that is going to be preferable to a full hold, and we did see 2 incredible defenses come out on King's Row. So 9 minutes and 1 second, just slightly over the total map time.
And, you know, that did look pretty good at the end there for Selfless, but I was hyping it up for a reason, Jorsar. In the ESL Atlantic Showdown, we saw the defending team able to hold on that last possible meter so many times. We actually saw it 3 or 4 times throughout the tournament where the defending team, even with a massive disadvantage, was able to delay long enough. So didn't quite happen there for Splice. Could have been the case, but anyway, 9 minutes and 1 second, totally beatable, as now Splice will take their turn attacking.
Yeah, if we get a situation where the defense are actually able to hold like that, they will need it. The good news is the attacking team has plenty of time to sort of do this as long as they need to. I mean, Splice have the entirety of map time effectively into overtime here to push the payload the entire way, and Selfless will be looking for ways to stop them from doing that. So I feel like, based off of Selfless defense on King's Row, if Rob Wiz shows us here with his flanks on Reaper, the same things we showed on King's Row, I think they have a good chance to stop Splice.
Yeah, they should do, and taking a look at the lineup here for Splice, it's actually going to be a Winston and a Zarya on attack, and you really like to have that Reinhardt shield to protect your team as you do come through the archways. The Reinhardt shield does actually take up almost all the space between those arches, but I do like this push, this concept as well. If you're able to shield that Winston as he jumps in, it's going to be pretty nice.
This is going to be potentially very aggressive coming out from Splice as well, because Clockwork is going to come around the side. They've got Genji as well on Shrugger. Shane is going to be jumping in on Winston, ideally shielded by Sickness as well. So their idea is to get a big collapse in very, very early on. So let's watch out for that in this engagement.
Oh yeah, we saw this so many times in the ESL Atlantic Showdown too. This whole composition is built around trying to get an early pick or just pushing directly into your opponents when they don't see you coming. Shania's Ghost now moving up on the left-hand side. Probably going to be looking to combo with the Zarya.
Here we go.
Here he comes. It's the DPS. The shield's going to give the DPS players some room to breathe, and will they be able to get the kills that they need?
Winston shielding Genji here, but he gets blown out of the sky. That is not an ideal first pick off there. And Rob Wiz, of course, getting the inflicting damage onto Splice. And all of a sudden, Genji and Trace are both incredibly exposed, but at the same time, they're able to deal out a lot of damage as well. Double kill coming out from Splice now, and Selfless' attack is starting to look like it's losing a bit of steam. Do we see a bit of rescue? Oh, there's Chili with the kill, but that alone will not turn the tide of this battle.
Yeah, that was a nice push by Splice. You know, the thought definitely made sense to push in like that, and they came from multiple angles at once, able to get the advantage in a very big way by getting that early pick. Even though the Winston went down, they were able to just continue to be so pesky, do so much damage from the sidelines, and it was basically Tracer zooming around on one side with Genji zooming around on the other. So able to do what was necessary to get that first point.
And now we move on to, of course, the church phase, the streets phase, if you like, where Selfless are going to attempt to defend on the high ground. They have a very long time to need to defend this. Still 7.5 minutes, just shy of, for them to complete the map. And Shrugger actually being very patient. He's got this ultimate available. You'll note that it's 4 ults versus 3 right now. And ideally, they want to be forcing Selfless to come down, fight on level terms, have those hitboxes juicily available. And there is the initiation, but Emong getting absolutely cleaned up initially.
Oh, Selfless actually looking a little bit lost on defense there. And they just haven't been able to react to what Splice has been giving them at this point. I mean, they didn't even need to use the Lucio sound barrier in that last fight. In fact, they hardly used any ultimates at all. So they're going to feel really confident moving on to this next point. It was basically just the Graviton Surge used in that last fight, which bodes well. Emong will strike back, but will that be enough to slow the tide? It actually just might be. It's now Emong's been able to get 2 kills, and he must be in a sneaky position there on the point, able to get those kills by himself.
Primal Rage now coming out from Winston, but Shane is going to be going down as well. Triple kill now for Emong, getting 3 of those, and RobWiz cleaning up. Again, we were talking about those 2 before. They are continuing now, and Selfless are looking their best to try and push this back. The problem for them is that it is still another 6 whole minutes. So RobWiz and Emong, they're going to have to do this like basically another 7 or 8 times for them to say, yes, this has gotten us the result we need.
Now, that was a breakneck pace, though, for Selfless. I mean, they basically had won almost every major engagement up until this point. Michael 3D will be looking for another big Graviton Surge for his team.
Disappeared.
Wow, this is the 2nd disconnect. Unfortunate for Ninja Nick. Hopefully he gets back on into the game in a second, but we'll keep calling it as it does progress. And Michael 3D doesn't even want to use it here. I mean, no one was there on the point. He's only able to grab 1. It will, though, at least force out the Transcendence. Pure is going to drop that Transcendence. Doesn't want to die, but I don't like that. I don't think he was able to help his team with that very much.
There are no 2 ways about it. I mean, if you're preparing to go in and lead a team engagement, and then about 3 seconds before it starts, you go, oh, by the way, we've lost our Lucio. There's no 2 ways about it. That's a really, really rough position for Splice to be in. Ninja Nick has rejoined the game. The good news is they have got time. 3 minutes to reach his checkpoint and 5 minutes to complete the map. So we'll see how quickly he can rejoin his team now as Selfless once again make an encouraging defense.
Let's see. Will we see any kind of big flank? Of course, this is a point where you can frequently see Genji sneak on, or Tracer really, sneak on over around through the side, but Clockwork is no longer playing on Tracer. Clockwork has switched back on over to McCree, does now have the Deadeye to his name as well. He's going to start looking for some kills. The entirety of Selfless, though, hiding behind the wall. It's going to be the D.Va barrier, so D.Va in play now. And North American teams do tend to like D.Va here and there. Don't see it much from the Europeans. First kill now, going to RobWiz.
And here we go, RobWiz trying to get some more kills. That's going to be very important because Shrugger has just gone ahead and popped the Genji blade, but he goes down as well. 4 people from Splice are dead, and as a result, Selfless will be able to push through. Pure deciding to take the slightly more honorable route out by the looks of things, and Selfless once again will be able to hold Splice. Now again, really good defense. Still 2 minutes to go. The magic number now for Splice, we're looking at basically 3 good pushes, and they need to build ultimates on at least the first one as well if they're not able to win this off ult.
Yeah, Pure actually wasted a 2nd Transcendence in a row there for his team, unfortunately. So back to the drawing board, and now Clockwork is going to have his Deadeye back up and ready, but Emong and Michael 3 to get the first 2 kills almost immediately. So Selfless looking super strong on defense here, and I feel like this is almost deja vu from Kings Row, and both teams have made it very, very slowly through the map, and Selfless continue to play great defense, even though Splice played great defense as well. The pressure's really mounting now, and they need to at least get a couple of ultimates in a big engagement for this next fight. But they actually don't have anything to combo directly with the Zarya ultimate at this point, so they might have to do it the old-fashioned way, look for an early pick in this next fight.
I mean, I hate to say it, but if you just look at the comparison between the DPSs, it's so difficult to compare Clockwork to Emong right now, who's just been so much more on point with getting those kills on the board, and RobWiz continuing to rack up the kills, whereas Shrugger has stayed largely invisible. Those 2 players, compared to their opposite number, have just done so well on Dorado compared to Kings Row. We really need to see Clockwork and Shrugger lift their game to compete with these guys right now. They still have time to do it, but that time is basically one last big push.
Those were some nice long-range dinks coming out for me, Emong, and always nice when you can get a couple of headshots in a row. And Emong definitely known for his hit scan accuracy. Does come from that type of game indeed. It's actually going to be a huge flank, though, coming out from Splice. Will they be able to catch Selfless off guard? Actually, Emong's not in position for this, so this could be the push that they needed, but they look kind of disjointed. Lucio's ahead of the rest of their team. Why is that happening? Lucio's all the way in front of him. Clockwork looking for any kind of value with the Deadeye. Will he be able to outlast the Matrix? No, he's not able to outlast the Matrix. In fact, his flashbang's used as well. Emong gets the first kill. This is the last chance here for Splice. Can they get any kind of value? Can they get any pick whatsoever? Does not look like it. Selfless eking out more and more of an advantage here. But Clockwork, will he make a miracle happen for his team?
No, and that's a triple. No, make that a quad from Rob Wiz. He comes in to extinguish all hopes, and he has absolutely punched a hole straight through the heart of Splice. If that wasn't enough, I don't know what is. Rob Wiz and Emong absolutely are MVPs there as they close out Dorado.
Yeah, and guys, remember, we are in a double elimination bracket, so Splice not out of it yet, but Selfless got to feel pretty good after that convincing win. And we saw this time and time again. You know, the flanking Reapers, definitely a big deal. But in the end, it is Selfless. Not a lot of people would have necessarily predicted this. We said it was going to be close. Indeed, it was in the end, but kind of an upset nonetheless.
I thought that was very interesting. I maybe gauge that as a little bit of a 60-40 Splice, just basically mainly seeing both teams play against some of the top teams. But I have to say, rather than calling out any particular coordination or team performance, which both teams actually had in abundance, there were some misses, some hits. The individual performances of Rob Wiz and Emong absolutely stood out there. Both sets of DPS players did well on Kings Row, but on Dorado, one set shined particularly strongly compared to the rest. And joining us back on the desk now is James. How was that, mate?
Well, that was pretty mental. I think there were a lot of times where, on both maps, where Splice looked to have a lot of momentum, especially we might go back and forth between these maps a little bit. On the second map there, obviously Selfless got off to a slow start on the first cap when they were pushing the payload.
Yep.
Then managed to catch up a lot quickly on the second point, which put them in better time than they might have been otherwise. But Splice, they capped that first point pretty good, and it was surprising because the Winston came in first. Obviously, he got completely wrecked, but he still managed to clear everybody out and cap it quickly. They had good momentum there, and I thought, okay, there's a reasonable chance they're going to really give themselves lots of time to push towards the end, but they never got there at all.
Yeah, pretty tough stuff. I mean, it did definitely look like Splice couldn't really put anything together. I mean, they weren't able to make any huge Zarya ultimates happen, and that's really one of the things you're going to be looking for on a lot of these payload maps is just comboing with a Zarya ultimate. It's got to be a Zarya ultimate and comboed potentially with a Death Blossom, speed boost the Death Blossom right into the action, something like that. But they weren't able to get together in that kind of way at all, really.
I think both teams had situations where their defense was absolutely superb. You can tell that for both Splice and Selfless, their team communication, picking off one person and then collapsing on an attacking team, on both Kings Row and Dorado, they were pretty good. And you can tell this because even when the map was completed, they were really slow times. Defense always seemed to have the edge over the attacking team. Where I think we saw things start to crack, really, and start to creak at the edges was the moment where I saw Shrugger leap off the church on the first floor and rush in with his ultimate on Reaper into a room, into a Reinhardt shield and Zarya bubble that wasn't really going to do anything. That started feeling like the first attack of several from Splice, where the defense was no longer getting the upper hand compared to the attack, basically.
Yeah, and this feels great for fans of Selfless here. They haven't had a huge win yet in their career. Getting all the way to Atlanta would be a huge win for them. Of course, they're going to have to face up against Envious next, which is an incredible feat for any team on the planet, much less a team that's barely been able to break out of like the mid to high tier in North America. But still, some momentum behind the back.
I really enjoyed how aggressive both Reinhardts were on the first map. Obviously, they have the shields, so they're there to defend a lot for their team and use the shields and so on, but there was loads of charging going on, loads of people just getting swept. Obviously, the hammer coming down as well, with great coordination there. But what about Mei? Obviously, we saw the Mei pick at the beginning. We saw the Wolves come up to try and split the teams. Didn't really work out at all, but there were some good ultimates there to freeze everybody in combination with some of the other team as well.
I think you're absolutely right. Mei from Michael 3D, not just on the first point, but throughout the entire duration of Kings Row, was really quite inspired, and I have to say maybe he was helped a little bit by us not seeing quite as much in the way of flanking heroes from Splice. I thought that the reaction was good, moving on to Winston, for example, to try and circumvent the walls, maybe bat people around a bit, spread people out so that Mei's less effective. But that did happen more or less in the last minute and 20 seconds of the map, when really Splice could have actually made those arrangements to transition just that little bit faster.
Do we need to get some kind of Everest award for Dax Lucio wall climbing? Because he was getting some serious airtime there. That was far beyond Jordan.
You know, it's kind of funny that we did see that moment from Dak, because this is actually one of the things that it's kind of like an inside joke in the community that he's known for not really touching the ground at all. So definitely makes sense to see him come out with Lucio and just trying to survive his longest as he, that's what Lucios do, man. They don't die.
That was really impressive, especially because it just wastes people time as well. They could be doing other things, being more efficient, but they're just dealing with a very, very annoying Lucio. We have the Republic of Gamers incredible play of the game to see. So let's see what the people in the back, what producer Reese has picked out for us.
Yeah, we had some pretty epic moments throughout the game, but is it going to be Mei? Could we see it be the Mei? I mean, he had some big moments, that's for sure.
Rob Wiz, I reckon.
Could be a Death Blossom.
Could be. Let's find out. It is going to be Rob Wiz, and this is all the way back on King's Row. And rushing in, I believe this could end up being the first flank. We were taking a look earlier on, getting the first pick off on the tank, and this is where they were so good at rushing in, spotting that first pick opportunity, getting those contributions to the 4 kills there, absolutely wiping the floor there. And that was one of many from Rob Wiz. That was very consistently his style of play throughout that whole series.
We saw a late D.Va pick on the defense, I think, just for the kind of last gasp clearing of the point with the explosion, which wasn't necessary in the end. But we did talk about D.Va being less common, perhaps, in this current meta. What did you think of that pick?
Well, it actually ended up paying off for Selfless quite a lot, mainly because they were able to shut down Clockwork's McCree. He tried to use his ultimate several times, and that defensive matrix lasts so long that even though you've got High Noon going for several seconds looking for a pick, it was the D.Va defensive matrix that just shut that down utterly and completely several times. And it wasn't just the High Noon that it stopped. I mean, obviously it stopped a whole lot else. It stopped several flashbangs coming in. So very effective, I'd say, at pretty much shutting down Clockwork.
I think you raise a really good point there, because ultimately we did mention Reaper and McCree versus Reaper and McCree and how good Rob Wiz was, for example, but a lot about allowing those DPS players to flourish and really start racking up the kills in the kill field is to do with your support or off tanks, especially from D.Va, like you mentioned, shutting down Clockwork's McCree. It's not necessarily that Clockwork is a much worse McCree than anybody else, but the rest of the team from Selfless were able to get behind, execute their plan, and make sure their DPS players were more effective. So working together as a team to ensure that happens just gave them so much more versatility in the kill feed.
All right, so we had a very violent first match here, and we're going to have more Overwatch coming your way after a short break. We'll see you back here soon.